Hi there, welcome to episode 4 of the Meadows Fireside video series, and today we are going to be talking about ingredients in joint supplements, and we're starting off with the two that are probably the ones that people are most familiar with, which is glucosamine and chondroitin. And they've always been perceived as sort of the yin and yang of a joint supplement, and that you have to have those two for a joint supplement to work. And I said I was going to be saying some controversial things, so I'm going to be starting with that today. But let's touch on glucosamine first. Glucosamine basically comes in two forms. It actually comes in 4 forms, but 2 forms that are sort of the most widely available, and that's glucosamine sulfate and glucosamine hydrochloride. And really the only difference between those two is glucosamine sulfate is stabilized with about 30% sodium chloride. So you're getting less glucosamine in a given a teaspoonful of glucosamine sulfate versus a teaspoonful of glucosamine hydrochloride. Is there a substantial difference in their efficacy? Probably not. We use glucosamine hydrochloride because you are getting more glucosamine, and providing that you have another type of salt or sulfur ingredient in your product, such as MSM or methionine, the glucosamine sulfate isn't really necessary, or to me doesn't represent a benefit. Glucosamine is highly bioavailable. In fact, I can quote to you from Professor Setnikar at the University of Rome, who did pharmacokinetics of glucosamine and found that tissue distribution excretion patterns were consistent with those found after IV administration. So it's absorbed very well. Now, chondroitin sulfate, on the other hand, is a little bit of a question mark about that from 2 different reasons. First of all, chondroitin sulfate is probably the most adulterated ingredient out in the supplement marketplace. There's a lot of bad chondroitin sulfate out there. And the standard assay method or testing method for chondroitin, which is something called CPC titration, can quite easily be tricked, where you can get false results. When the NASC does product testing on chondroitin, we use a much more robust testing method, which is called enzymatic HPLC, and through that, we found lots of products failing. And certainly it's been my experience when I've tested particularly high-dose chondroitin sulfate products, that they have normally considerably less than what is claimed on the label. But perhaps of more concern for me about chondroitin sulfate is the whole issue of bioavailability, because it's quite a large molecule. And I'm going to be passing some sheets onto the screen here that I think sort of validate my position on that aspect. So first of all, this is a piece out of Horse and Hound in the UK, and in the chondroitin sulfate section, if you go down to the second column where they're talking about that, the second paragraph where it says 2 studies whose results have not yet been published, talking about you can feed supplements containing chondroitin sulfate to horses at the recommended dose rate, and that none will be absorbed. I think that's probably a little bit harsh, but certainly, the absorption rate is certainly not comparable to glucosamine. The next one I want to show you again is another piece about absorption, and on the second column, second paragraph, talking about the absorption rate of glucosamine is very good. The absorption of chondroitin sulfate estimated to be anywhere from 0 to 13%. And again, talking about the fact that the chondroitin sulfate molecules are 50 to 300 times larger than glucosamine, and it's difficult for them to pass out of the small intestine into the bloodstream of the horse. Another one here is from the Piedra Research Foundation. Again, oral absorption of chondroitin, and again, in the highlighted area, you can see it's talking about the fact that it doesn't seem to be absorbed very effectively, large size of the molecule. So again, sort of building on that idea that it's really not a very good oral ingredient. The last one is from the American College of Rheumatology, and again, pharmacokinetics of oral glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate in horses, and they were trying to determine in humans, I should add, the bioavailability of these ingredients. Now, going to the second page, where you see conclusions at the bottom of that page, it talks about G, glucosamine, substantially absorbed, so that's good. But in contrast, no change in plasma CS, chondroitin sulfate, was found in the blood after oral administration. So they're sort of asking the question again there, you know, how does this work? So going back to this, you know, what is glucosamine doing? Well, what we believe glucosamine is doing is it is providing nutrition to the synoviocytes that are the cells that live in the synovial membrane that produce hyaluronic acid. And so basically glucosamine is acting as a nutrient source and hopefully helping develop better viscosity in the joint fluid, and then subsequently that joint fluid is providing nutrition to the cartilage tissue, which is producing through the chondrocytes hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate. Now the real key with chondroitin sulfate production in the chondrocytes is manganese. Manganese is the essential mineral that's required for that. So this is a little bit dry, I'm sorry, but you know, I felt like it would be good to just sort of get into these ingredients a little bit. Let's talk about dosage levels quickly. I'm really just going to focus on glucosamine. We see dosage levels ranging from sort of 2,500 up to about 10,000. For sort of the quarter horse thoroughbred Arab size, I think 5,000 is certainly an adequate level. For the bigger warm blood horses, I think you're probably looking more 7,500 milligrams to 10,000 milligrams as being an effective level. The other thing that is a really important distinction to make is just straight glucosamine or just straight chondroitin sulfate is kind of like having a sandwich with just bread. Okay, you need certain minerals, amino acids, vitamin C, which is important in the production of collagen, for a joint supplement to really work effectively. They are, I guess you could call the ham, the mustard, lettuce, tomato that goes on the sandwich that makes it work. So that's another important distinction is, you know, just straight glucosamine or straight chondroitin sulfate are not going to be as effective as a product that's, you know, formulated with some depth. So I hope this session has given you a little bit of an insight on glucosamine and chondroitin. In the next video, we're going to talk about hyaluronic acid and MSM. So I'll hopefully see you guys then, and thanks for listening. Bye.